Hello everyone, welcome to Tactica Imperialis and to today's video. Today is going to be a my thoughts on. This is a video that I wasn't really planning to make at all. It's just something that struck me that I kind of wanted to talk about. So what I want to talk about today is how you go about choosing an army. Because we've all been there as hobbyists, whether it's on day one when we first get introduced to the hobby, or maybe it's several months or years later when we decide, okay, I finished this project, I want to move on to a new one. And the process of how we decide what army we want to go into next. And it's something that's really hit me of late, because I'm coming to the end of a hobby project right now, my Stormcast Eternals hobby project, and I need to decide what I want to do next. Both with 40k and with Age of Sigmar, and so I find myself having a lot of conflicting information about what I want to do and why I want to do it in particular. So I guess I just wanted to talk about what goes through a hobbyist's mind, or at least me as a hobbyist, what goes through my mind when it comes to how I select an army. So there are three main schools of thought when it comes to I don't want to call it army selection because that leads into list building, but when it comes to project selection, let's go with that, project selection. And they are the three main aspects of this hobby, really: lore, models, and tabletop game. I.e. what the army is like as a faction in fluff, in lore and background, what the models are like, both in terms of just general appearance and painting opportunities, conversion opportunities, and the like, and then how the army will perform on the tabletop, which can then be subdivided into interesting builds or into competitive builds, and can probably be subdivided even further than that. I'm not the biggest tabletop gamer, but I sort of understand that thought process. So, obviously a lot of this is entirely personal because everyone has their own methodology, but I guess I just want to talk about my way and maybe I'll have a discussion with you. So, when it comes to selecting an army for me, I go through all three of those aspects, lore, models, and tabletop. And if one of those three ticks me off in a particularly bad way, I will generally not collect that army. So, for example, what would be a really, really good example? I'm not sure. Probably it would be something like Tau, actually. Because I have a quite large Tau army at this point, and I'll be hopefully going to reinforce it. I'll come on to like my army selection quandary another time, maybe. But what got me into the Tau was the lore. So, a long time ago, somebody asked me to do a lore video for Commander Farsight, so I read the Farsight Enclave supplement and we did lore videos on Farsight at the time, and I was so inspired by the project and by the characters of the Farsight Enclaves that I decided, you know what, screw it, and the next time I was in GW I bought a Tau Start collecting box. And the rest is history. That's the power of some things, but the Tau as a faction did not tick all the boxes for me. Their models were fine. I did like the battle suits. I thought they were very cool models. Their lore was serviceable. I mean, I'd read it and I thought it was quite cool. But the way they perform as a tabletop army didn't appeal to me at all, because I had maybe hard-coded in my head the Tau were an army that didn't move, just stood there and shot and shot and shot. And that was completely boring to me. But having explored the Farsight Enclaves, not only did I fall in love with Farsight and the 8 as characters, I got to see a different way of playing the game as a aggressive, fast-moving, all battlesuit style of army, maybe supported by infantry and vehicles, yes, but where the power of your suits was what made the game so much more fun to play, and maybe added a different edge to most people who would build around Tau. I need to face rush them because they're going to be playing a gun line. Lol jokes, here's a pile of battle suits behind you and now you're surrounded, have fun. That was sort of what went through my mind, because like I said, I wouldn't have collected Tau if it weren't for doing that, and I don't regret it, I don't. I really have enjoyed my time playing Tau, so it was a good thing, and I really do thank the person that asked me to do Farsight's lore. But they're not an army that, had I not done more looking into and found an alternate way to play, I would have looked into at all. And today I find myself in that quandary with, of all the armies, I never thought I'd be saying this, the Drukhari. Those who've been around the channel for a while and watched my various lore videos on the Drukhari and the homunculus commons in particular know that I don't like them as a faction lore-wise. They creep me out. The homunculi in particular just are shiver down your spine level of creepy. And yet I want a Drukhari army. Because the way the rules have been presented have been so intriguing that I've thought, oh, well, actually. Because the Drukhari model range is really, really good. The Cabals, the Cults, even the Covens, if that's your thing, it's not mine. But objectively speaking, they are very, very good models. Sure, they could do with some more characters, cough Lady Malice. But they are a really good set of models, and with a couple of extra characters and maybe some alternate kits for their leaders like Archons and Succubi and Homunculi, they could be a really top model range because they got a full redo in 5th edition and they look amazing. They really do. Hellions, Reavers, the Raiders look awesome. Even the Carbolite Warriors look great. But their lore never let me look into them as an army on the tabletop. I mean, I think I play tested them like once in 6th edition because I was bored and wanted something else to do because I'd just finished my Speed Freaks for a while. Because my original army was Orcs under Wazdak Gutsmech until he got removed from the Codex as well. Thanks, G-Nubs. But I was in the sort of mood for a really fast-moving army and wanted to try something other than Orcs, so I playtested Dark Eldar once. And it was alright, it was an experience, but I wasn't that fussed for it. And the lore made me say, nope, can't do it. I refuse. But then there was just a fast-moving, kind of interesting glass cannon with lore that creeped me out and good models. I was never going to collect them. And yet, with the 8th edition rules that we've got for the Drukhari, where they've got this band of raiders and their obsessions, it's been fascinating to read them. Because it's made me think about the Drukhari and think, well, actually, I could build an army around this. I've envisioned a cult detachment where I use this trait or that trait, and then I supported it with a Cabal element, and my mind just started going and just chugging through gears, and all of a sudden, I kind of wanted a Drukhari army, even though normally I wouldn't go anywhere near them. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that sometimes aspects can overrule what you'd normally do. So going back to those 3 aspects, models, rules, and lore. What is it that will influence you as a hobbyist? Honestly, it's completely personal. You might be someone who is all about going to tournaments and winning them. So you might say, right, I need an army that is powerful on the tabletop. And I also, ideally, could do with an army that is easy for me to collect and paint, because I might need to change my build on the fly based on what the meta does or what happens in FAQs. So I need an army that I can paint relatively easy and has relatively customizable models where I can change components in and out quite easily. So that might be your mindset. You might be a full-on narrative gamer who says, the lore is the most important to me, I want to create a fluffy army with fluffy builds, so I need an army that can accommodate me doing some slightly wonky things to fit the narrative. So I need models that I can convert to look like characters that I've either homebrewed or come across in the fluff. I need an army whose detachments and force org allows me to do what I want to do, and ideally has traits that will allow me to create the army I really want. So see my Farsight army as an example of that. I wanted an army that would allow me to build the Farsight Enclaves, and the Dawnblade contingent that you had in the 7th edition supplement really allowed me to do that, whilst the relatively high posability of Crisis Battlesuits allowed me to create my version of the 8. Or you might be somebody who is, first and foremost, a painter, a collector, who just wants the best models possible. It's like, yes, I just want the army that has the best looking models, and then I'll see what I can do from there. So, cool stuff, cool stuff, cool stuff. Okay, I can sort of forge an attachment out of this, so let's go. So it's completely personal, and it's just a fascinating thought process of how you go about doing it. Obviously, as I say, it is entirely on you how you do it. So, I don't really know where I'm going with this. My thoughts on has always been a bit of a ramble type series where It's either part review, part ramble, and this is definitely leaning into the ramble category. But I suppose if I were to offer you some advice about going about selecting your next project, the things I would say would be, don't take things at face value and try and look at all the aspects, because you might come across something that changes your mind. They're the main two things I would say, and I've personally come across both of those things. With the Farsight thing, I looked past my surface level interpretation of the Tau to find a completely different build and run with it. With the Drukhari, I've tried to appreciate them from a rules perspective first, and then tried to fit a narrative around that, as opposed to creating a narrative and then going all in on their rules to try and fit that narrative. I've gone gameplay first, try and make an army that will work while staying on theme. And the same sort of thing is happening with Age of Sigmar, because Age of Sigmar is in an even more interesting position with the way the lore is being developed, and the models are, frankly, unbelievable. Just look at the Daughters of Cain, look at the Ideneth Deepkin, and tell me those models aren't amazing. I dare you. So, yeah, they're the two pieces of advice I would give, and just don't go in bull in a china shop blind when it comes to your collection. Because at the end of the day, if you just rush into collecting something and then decide, oh, actually, maybe this wasn't for me, well, you've then got to sell that project or put it on the shelf or in a box and start over. And spoiler alert, this hobby is quite expensive. So you really do need to stop and think about what project you want to do. Whether that's starting a new game system, whether that's just picking up a new army, whether it's a new flavour on an army you currently own. Just stop and think about what you're doing before you dive in. Are the models good enough for you to want to paint them? Do they have conversion opportunities that would allow you to create your own individuals? Or if you're someone who really likes going all out on narrative, create characters from the fluff, or heavily modified vehicles, or whatever it is that you want to do. Does the model range allow you to do what you want to do? Do the rules suit the way you want to play? Are they powerful if you're a tournament gamer and will allow you to synergize and combo and do what some people would call utterly degenerate things? I'm going to steer away from that terminology, but you might say that, will that allow you to create a power list without having to net list and just say, oh, this army is powerful because the internet said so, here's a list, bang, I'm going to play it? Will it allow you to create your own flavour on that, put a twist on it, or even do something completely different that might counter what you're running into in the meta? Can the rules support that? And is there room in those rules for experimentation? So 8th edition is fantastic for having lots of different traits, the chapter tactics, the Tau set tenets, the dynastic codes, the various Drukhari obsessions. Those sorts of things really allow you to add flavour and also experiment with how you want your army to build. Because obviously you run a fast-moving tenet, you can run a really fast-moving army, but then you might run a really slow one that relies on shooting synergy, so you build your army a different way. Do the rules support that and allow you to both do something powerful and also do what you want to do? And also the narrative. Do the characters engage you? Does the factions character as an overall thing engage you? Because obviously if you are someone who cares about the narrative, whether you're someone who's completely obsessed with it like me, or you just like it as a way to add a custom paint scheme or some flavour to your army, does it engage you enough to make you care enough to push through with that army? Because sometimes what you would consider the driving force for an army isn't enough. It can wane, it can change. So it might be you start an army for the fluff and then change what you were doing originally because of the rules. Or it may be that you see an awesome model and say, I want that model and an army built around it, so you go yoink, get it off the shelf, and then you have to start building around it because you have to start using the less good models that aren't so amazing shiny to build the rest of your army. So what do you take? And how does that influence you? Or maybe you buy in for it for a power build, and then your army gets nerfed in an FAQ, or a new army comes out that completely hard counters you, and so people start building around that, and it leaves you not where you want to be with that army anymore, so you need to try and rethink why you're collecting that project. And all of those things have to be considered because, as I've said, it's an expensive hobby and projects can get really, really big and engaging. Because if you pick the right project, you can do truly wonderful things. I was talking with one of my friends who was saying, I kind of want 5,000 points of this, 5,000 points of that, 5,000 points of that, and 5,000 points of that, and then I'll be happy. But then I could also add this. Or what about adding this as a new ally for some more fun? And then that makes me think, well, I've got this army and I can get that up to, like, let's say 6,000 points, but then I've got 2 other factions I want to pick up and I can add them in such and such a way. And they can be such an organic, beautiful process if you go with it and you engage with it and you pick your projects correctly with a bit of care, with a bit of attention, and with a bit of a broader mindset. I realise I've rambled and gone in circles and maybe not been super clear, so allow me to sum up before I sign off. When you're picking your armies for your next collecting project, or just as an expansion on a project that you're either currently working on or returning to, make sure you consider the full smorgasbord of things that you can use. Whether that is the models that are available to you, because that can have a huge influence. Whether it's the characters and the flavour of the army lore-wise. So is there a hero that engages you? Is there a subgroup that really has some fascinating things that you can do as a collector to work around that? And do the rules suit you? Will they play the way you want to play? Will they generally just work for you and whatever you want out of this game as a tabletop game? Will it allow you to create fluffy builds, thematic builds, synergy builds, power builds, combo builds, ally builds, whatever it is? Will it allow you to do that? And more importantly, will the other 2 aspects behind your primary reason support you if that primary reason falls off? Let's say there's a lore retcon, or the models that you have to collect to finish off the army aren't as good as the ones you started with, or the rules get patched, or something else comes out that hard counters you. Is there enough in the other aspects of that project to make you keep going? Because if you pick the wrong project, it just ends up on eBay or whatever else, and you think, maybe I shouldn't have picked that. And I've been there, I've done that. But if you pick the right project, and you pick the right project to follow on from that project, it can be one of the best feelings ever. So with my own final thoughts, I've got 5 armies I want to collect right now. 4 brand new armies, and then 1 that's waiting. So I'd Deepkin and Daughters of Cain both want my attention in Age of Sigmar. There's the Tau that I want to keep expanding on for 40k, as well as the Drakari thing that's kind of come up quite recently. And then there's the Orcs who are going to be around somewhere, and the Orcs are basically my first love with this hobby. I got into the hobby playing Orcs, and I will never stop loving the Orcs as a faction. So when the Orc Codex comes out, that might re-inspire me to go back to the Greenskins and do some fun stuff, and I cannot wait. It's frustrating because I'm only going to be able to pick 1 or 2 to work on at a time, 1 per game system, but I cannot wait to get through it all. And if my passion for the hobby continues to flourish like this as it has for the past nearly 10 years of my life, it's going to be a really fun next 12, 24, 36 months as I get these projects done and maybe add new projects as new stuff comes out. And it's a beautiful thing. You can tell I love this hobby, and part of it is because there's always something for me to do. There's always a new army that comes out and says, that's got a really amazing flavour, I kind of want that, or that model is utterly stunning, I want, or, ooh, that's some fun rule ideas that go with my armies that I've currently got. There's always something that engages me, and I love this hobby for it, whether that's for 40k or for AOS. And I suppose some of the things I've said about going in with an open mind can also be applied to 40k players with AOS, but that's a video for another day, I suspect. So anyway, that has been my thoughts on project selection, starting a new army in this hobby. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Have I covered the broader aspects, or are there some finer details you want to add, or just some counter arguments in general? And of course, Let me know if there's anything else you want me to discuss. I generally like to discuss these sorts of things on live streams, so check out the live stream VODs, or if you are lucky enough to catch one because I stream sort of at awkward times for some people, then feel free to dive in and we can chat about it there. So thank you all for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed it. This has been Tactica Imperialis. Until the next time, I'll see you all again. Goodbye.